On today's podcast, we are entering the world of conversation. We have this opportunity in a conversation with an individual, with another person, typically in an impersonal setting, to exchange thoughts, exchange ideas. They can be very enjoyable. Do you like having conversations, Brant?
I enjoy a good conversation.
I do too.
I do not enjoy a not good conversation.
See, Brant, there you go.
Yeah.
Right? I think most people enjoy a great or even a good conversation. But what creates a good conversation? There's probably an exchange of somebody talking. And I'd imagine at some point, if it goes well, there's an exchange of somebody listening.
Right.
Good. That ends the podcast. Thank you very much, everybody.
All right, the end. We've solved it. All right, so there's a conversation between two people. It's an exchange between the two.
Yep.
The end.
The end. That's it.
Okay. From conversations to the natural world to complete silence, so many of us focus on what's next rather than what is happening now. I'm Listening is a podcast that dissects the importance of listening.
I'm Drew Richmond.
And I'm Brant Christofferson.
And this is I'm Listening, a podcast simply about the skill of listening.
Okay, so we've got this conversation. What are you going to do with it?
Well, see, this is the thing. We're going to pick this thing apart because I believe that a good or even a great conversation has this beautiful balance.
Mm-hmm.
But my friend, what if there's imbalance in that conversation?
What if there is imbalance in the force?
The origin of this conversation today comes from a term I heard recently. I brought it up to you and you were super intrigued. And that term, the me monster.
The me monster.
The me monster.
You know, Drew, you brought this to me recently and my eyes lit up because I'm like, oh my gosh, I've not heard this term before, but I think I've been the me monster before. I can relate where I've been that person to take over the conversation, right?
Well, since we're in confession right now, yeah, me too, right? It's like when somebody offers you a piece of gum or a mint and you're like, well, do I have bad breath? When somebody brings up a me monster, you're like, are you talking about me?
Yeah.
It's a fascinating thing. So we're going to dig into this today, and it's a thing because we've all experienced it, period. There is not a single person listening to this podcast who has not experienced a me monster. But this is the thing with this conversation, is that if you do feel that you are a me monster, or you've been told that you're a me monster, it's okay. It's okay. Brant and I, as we talked about this, we're both sitting there going, well, are we me monsters? I like to talk about, Brant, do you like to talk about yourself? I talk about myself sometimes, but is that a me monster, or is that just an exchange?
Yeah, we're looking at a conversation. Conversation has that exchange of talking and listening, and there's a balance there. It's a dance. And I think the reason I went so self-conscious is because I'm always thinking about that, like, was I being the me monster? So we're really looking at some of those things that can tip the scales in that exchange and what you can do about it. Sometimes it could be us, yourself, that is the me monster, or it could be the other person you're talking to that is being the me monster. What do you do about it?
This engagement and balance of conversation that creates a good or great conversation could potentially be effortless, depending on who you know or how good they are at it. Some people are really good at holding conversation. Some people are terrible at it. And it's okay. It's okay. We're here for you. When that exchange is lost, perhaps one of the parties is attempting to bring it back. I'll share just a very real example of Brant, where you came from and where I lived for a while, and to a certain degree where I think a lot of people here in the Midwest can relate. Fishing stories, right?
Yeah.
Brant, you will never guess. I went fishing yesterday and I caught a 15-inch bass. It was awesome. The day was beautiful. It was sunny. And man, that thing just, it took my bait, and it was an incredible 15-inch bass. Can you believe it?
15-inch bass. I can believe it because, You'll never guess what. I recently was out fishing and I caught a 17-inch.
Oh, so you caught a 17-inch bass? Man, that's crazy. I knew this one guy that he caught a 19-inch bass once. It was crazy.
Ah, I see what you're doing here.
So it happens all the time. Oh,
It does.
I did this thing. Oh, yeah, well, I did this thing. Oh, yeah, well. Now that, my friend, I think that's the definition of the one-upper. I got something a little bit better. But are we engaging in conversation or are we just one-upping each other?
Yeah, it's a pissing match, I believe they call it.
Ooh.
The technical term. Yeah.
Technical term.
There's an exchange, but we're one-upping each other.
We're
and
one-upping
all we're
each
trying
other.
to do is outdo. Oh, yeah, whatever you have to say, I can do it better.
So you got the me monster, you've got the one-upper. I think they're tied together a little bit.
Yeah.
The me monster thing is fascinating. So there's a comedian, and we'll put the link in the information to this bit. It was about 10, 12, 14 years ago, something to that extent. He fucking nails it. He basically goes through this bit where he's like, yeah, you're having a conversation with somebody, and then the me monster shows up, and it's, oh yeah? Well, that ain't nothing. And then it's like, oh, well, shit, I'm so sorry that my thing that I was telling you is completely useless now and has no effect on anybody in this world at all whatsoever. But please tell me what you have to fucking say, because that's exactly what I need to hear right now. And it is hilarious. So I got to give him a little bit of credit of coining that term.
Yeah, everywhere we looked, it pointed back to him coining that term or bringing it to popularity. And after that, started seeing it more and more in different places. So it definitely would, I'd say it started with that.
For sure. Okay, so a couple other angles with this. So we have the intent of the conversation. So you're striving for balance. You're striving for an exchange of information. You go through this and you are trying to engage these individuals. You're trying to have this relevant conversation. There's social cues that are involved. There's all these other things, but you want to continue the story. And I think that is something we joke a little bit about the, oh yeah, well, I caught a bigger fish than you did. And that's kind of one-upping. But what about this self-conscious thing that I experience that gets into the relatability of what they're talking about to continue the conversation, to create that balance and continue that exchange of information, where it's not necessarily one-upping, but it's, oh yeah, well, I've done something like that too. Oh my God, Is that awful? Is that bad?
You're trying to see if you want to make a connection, you want to be relatable. So in trying to be relatable, if I share a story about my pencil and then you share that, hey, I also have a story about a pencil, you're trying to relate to me. So you're relating to me by saying, hey, we have something in common, right? I think it shifts when the conversation goes, hey, check out this pencil I have. And you come and you try to put me down or you try to one-up me. You have a pencil? Well, my pencil is better than yours. That's, I think, where we start getting into that imbalance, right? Because it's no longer about making a connection with me. It's now about pushing me down and propping you up.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So now, to me, you're talking about this kind of either look at me or woe is me type concept of we're beyond relatable now there's imbalance, and maybe that other person feels that they need to be better than you or to prove through conversation that their story or their idea or whatever they're talking about is better than what yours is. It's that idea of that, well, that ain't nothing, check this out. And it's like, well, shit, I guess whatever I was talking about doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
So
I think
is that a
I don't even know if they're doing it in, oh, go ahead.
No, I was saying, is that a personality trait? Is that a bad day? I mean, if you're in some sort of like social business executive competitive environment, that might lend itself to be more prevalent in that environment versus just a casual,
Possibly.
whatever, dinner, evening out kind of thing.
That's a loaded question. So I'm looking at like the me monster is intentionally or unintentionally drawing the conversation back to themselves. They're talking about themselves. So you're asking, why are they talking about themselves so much? That's a lot to unpack there, right?
Right.
Is it based on past experience, current circumstances. Yeah, what is it that makes them behave or act in that way? You mentioned the different kind of dynamics we came up with the me monster of there is the look at me monster, where it's look at me, look at me, look at me. And then there is the woe is me, right? Like oh, woe is me. Everything is going wrong. The world is out against me. Where do these come from?
You just asked me a more loaded question. Boy, we're getting deep. We're getting real deep, because I think that there's an insecurity there. Mm-hmm. There's potentially a kind of a victim type mindset that might come into play, that, the world's against them. So maybe this is an opportunity for them to exude some control. Oh boy, now we just got real deep.
Control, yeah. No, it is really deep, and it's not saying this person or anyone is like this all the time.
No.
If I'm in a situation, right? If I'm in a situation where I'm feeling helpless, if I'm in a situation where I'm feeling like I'm not in control, I bet you that me monster is going to start to come out. I'm going to try and figure out a way to bring things back to me so I can gain some control again in whatever's going on with me.
I think that's a great point. And I think the way you phrase that, and I think this is important too for this conversation and for our listener, we're not defining a person. It's a trait that may exist, because I don't think it's all of the time. I don't think, if you've had experience with folks that are doing this, it might not be what they are all of the time, but it might just be the circumstance, the environment, their day. But, that tendency might come up that this is an opportunity for me to gain control over something if I don't feel that I'm really ever in control.
Right. I think it's hard, too, in that if I'm having a conversation with someone that feels unequal in that conversation, that's a hard place to be. Is it my job to balance that out? I think in a casual conversation, most of the time, if someone's really tipping the scales, I just want out, right? I'm done talking with that person.
Out.
Forget it. I'm out.
I mean, you see this a million times. It's on TV. It's everything. It's just that like, oh, what's that? I'll be right there. You're out.
Yeah.
Now, maybe the topic, but for the conversation that we're having today, for this I'm Listening podcast, there's imbalance in the conversation. You can't get that balance back. The exchange is not working, and you're out. And I think that there may be attempts at attempting to get that back again, like we talked about. Maybe you try to relate to them with a similar story or a similar experience, or do something. But once you try that a couple times, you're out. And do they not care about what I have to say? Am I just supposed to sit here and listen? Like, there's no exchange.
Whatever I'm bringing to the exchange is no longer of value.
Is gone. So how long do you want to do that for? We've all been there. And there is a threshold. Some of us, maybe can stick through with it a little bit longer. But there's definitely a threshold that you just go, oh, wow, I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to do that. The exchange is gone. There's complete imbalance. I can't get that back. And then you're like, I just don't think that they don't care about me then. If they don't care about me, they don't want to listen to what I have to say. There's no relatability in this conversation. I'm out.
As you're talking about this, I'm thinking about like a volleyball match or a tennis match or ping pong, right? Where there's an exchange back and you're volleying the ball back and forth. And if I'm playing with someone who is always just wanting to slam the ball in my face, I'm not going to want to play with that person anymore, right? If I'm playing with a person that is always like, I can't hit the ball, I'm not going to want to play with them either.
Yeah.
Will I work with that person? Absolutely. If they're willing to work to figure out that balance between me and them, I'm willing to work with them, right? But if at a time, it might just get exhausting, and I might just have to say, I'm going to have to take a break.
In doing research on this topic, sports actually came up a few times. One of the other examples that I read was, it's not necessarily the ball hog. It's there's no I in team, but there is a me. Mm-hmm. And it's that idea of the individual day outweighs the overall result. So you could, the story that they shared and the example that they shared of that sense of a me monster was the team won, but I didn't score any goals or score any points, or I had a bad game, and they dominate that atmosphere, that locker room, the conversation because of what they were not able to do, even though there was a positive outcome overall. And in the opposite sense, the team, you lose that game, but boy, I scored 4 goals, or I scored 36 points, or whatever it is. They had a great game, but the team lost, and then they'll dominate it in the opposite sense. So beyond the conversation, this can happen in lots of different areas. Now you've got me monsters in a team environment.
It makes me think of confidence when you're telling the story about someone who is, woe is me, or I can do better in the locker room. I think of that person's not feeling really confident in themselves right now.
Yeah, I don't think so.
The opposite of that, then, I would say, would be confident, that they are, and I'm not saying confident like overconfident, like cocky. Oh, I know I can do better. It's looking at that more of a balanced sense of having self-awareness, balanced sense of confidence, a balanced sense of kind of knowing where you're at within the team. And without that, we can tend to all kind of tip one way or another.
Yeah, and it's that self-awareness and that confidence. And I think that there's probably a direct link from an awareness piece. You're probably coming from a little bit better of a spot than if it's always about you and you're not aware of your surroundings, whether it be the conversation, the team, coworkers, family, whatever that is. I don't know. I think there's a direct tie there. Because I think that if I can look back in different conversations over time and go, that wasn't very much fun. I wish I could get to know that person a little bit better, or I wish there was an angle that I could connect with that person a little bit more. But I didn't like being talked to or talked at during that exchange. I have a whole nother angle, Brant, that we're gonna attempt to unfold here, and that is social media.
Social media.
There's another connection to this in the realms of some research about the me monster, and this word came up, and this idea, and this thing, and this action came up. Are you willing to follow me here? Are we willing to talk about this a little bit, Brant? Say yes.
Oh, it depends.
It's a podcast. You have to say yes.
Okay. Yeah. Where are we going?
The selfie.
The selfie.
The selfie. Brant, I'll explain it to you.
Do you remember your
camera.
first selfie?
What's that?
Do you remember your first selfie?
No. But I bet you Photos does.
Oh, yeah. Let me go back on Facebook. I bet I can find your first selfie.
Oh, God. Please hold.
Drew's suspending his Facebook account right now, so the listeners stop looking him up.
Yeah. Cancel everything. Cancel. Clear. Cancel everything.
You're calling Facebook?
Please hold. 1-800-Facebook.
That's too many numbers.
Not for Facebook. They can do whatever they want.
Oh, good.
So there's the selfie. Brant, the selfie is prevalent. It's everywhere. You can't stop it. It's a thing. I learned of the origin of the selfie in 2010, 2011.
Sure.
The Wikipedia defines the first selfie being taken in 2002, which who knows what the hell that means, but it's good enough for me. I'll buy it for $1. Is the selfie a variation of the me monster?
Interesting. When you think of a selfie, when that first happened, right? So you talk about your first learning of that term selfie in 2010. Before that, or before the first selfie was taken in 2002, whatever that was, when someone was using a camera to take a picture of themselves, we'd be like, whoa, you're a little too into yourself here. What's going on? Right? So, and today it's like, that's silly. Like, everybody takes selfies. My 3-year-old likes to take selfies. I'm like, how did you learn about this? You're 3. Yeah, our phones have cameras on them now that face us, right?
Think about
that. To be able to take pictures of ourselves.
Take a second on that one and just think about that. It has a
Yeah.
reverse, so you can see yourself doing it.
Sure.
I have a daughter. She has certain apps on her phone, and the point of that app is to show yourself. Yourself, selfie, selfie here, selfie there. This is what I'm doing now. This is what it is. I'm going to snap it, and then I'm going to chat about it. Look, great. Good for you. I don't care, but I'm also not a 15-year-old girl, even though I act like it sometimes. Is the origin of the selfie perhaps a me monster? Yes, I believe the origin of the selfie is. Is it today? I don't know. I don't know.
I think it's changing.
What about the self-portrait?
Yeah.
So it's 1890 or it's 1920 before you could just turn a camera on yourself and take a self-portrait. What about like the painted self-portrait or the first existence of the self-portrait via a camera? Is that a selfie? Is that a me monster? I don't think so.
I'm going to go back to looking at confidence again. I think sometimes when we think of a selfie, we think of people who are being overconfident, being that stereotype of being a little overconfident, overcocky. Look at me. How cool am I? And it's not always that, because confidence, a balanced sense of confidence, is also knowing who you are, being accepting of yourself, proud of yourself, and knowing yourself. And I think part of that, when cameras are so prevalent today, where they were not when we were kids, that it is an easy thing to do to take a picture of yourself. Of course you're going to do it. It's just like recording your voice. When you listen back to your own voice, you're just like, I didn't know I sounded like that. I don't like listening to myself.
I don't know what you mean, Brent. What do you mean? Go on.
Which brings us all to this. I look at podcasting. Is this the audio format of a selfie?
Oh, shit.
We are recording ourselves talking right now, Drew.
Oh, God. Are we me monstering ourselves?
Are we me monstering ourselves? I don't know.
Am I monstering me?
Boop. We're experiencing technical difficulties. Please stand by.
Have we entered the Twilight Zone? Is this what it's like in a black hole?
Yes, I think it is. Because I think we're getting to the root of it now. And it's the question I think we brought up when we started having the conversation about saying, hey, should we do a podcast or not? Right? It's what is it that we have to say that we feel could be of value to someone else?
And what we have to say is that it's important.
Is look at me.
No, damn it, Brant. It's about listening. And if people in the world listened just a little bit more, we would create a better world.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. You ready? Here we go. Follow me.
Okay.
It's all about imbalance. The selfie is imbalanced. It is about me doing this thing. Today, there are a billion of them taken every day, and it's whitewash at this point, right? But it's still an important thing to individuals. That's fine. But there's so many of them that nobody goes, oh my God, I can't believe you took a selfie. No, it's what everybody does. But 20 years ago, it was an imbalance. It was a sharing of information, i.e. a picture of yourself that you took of yourself, and you posted it on social media, and it was an imbalance. It was, well, look at what I'm doing right now. And there was an imbalance in the conversation. The conversation was one-sided.
Because not everyone was taking a selfie.
Correct.
I'm taking a selfie. I'm shifting the balance.
And now perhaps I can relate to my 15-year-old daughter who is taking a selfie. She's not taking a selfie to say, look at me, this is what I'm doing now. She's taking a selfie and posting it to exchange an equal and balanced conversation with other people taking selfies and posting them on the app.
Yeah. Interesting.
Insert mind blown explosion head thing here. Did we just do a thing? Did we just come full circle? So the podcast,
I think
the podcast is us having this exchange, sometimes inviting people into the conversation. Thank you, guests. So hopefully have some people out there listening about what we feel is important, which is listening. Why do we feel that that's important in the context of conversation? Because it creates balance. So if you listen to the person and then they listen to you in exchange and you feel listened to, there's a balance. And once that's lost, there is imbalance. It doesn't work anymore. There's no longer an exchange. You start feeling that they don't care and you want out.
Wow. Did you just see that? I think the clouds just parted. But I think you hit it right there. It is, we value the skill of listening, and diving into this topic on the me monster helps us explore where we can find that imbalance in a conversation, and where that value of listening and asking questions and being present with someone else really comes into play.
That's it. And it doesn't matter if it's a podcast. It doesn't matter if it's a selfie. It doesn't matter if it's in person, or it doesn't matter if it's in maybe a high tense work environment, or if you're at a party with a bunch of friends. Regardless of what it is, if there's balance, it's okay. It works. So if you get yourself into a one-up situation, it's probably not going to work out very well. If you have become a me monster, intentionally or otherwise, it's not working. But if there's balanced conversation and balanced exchange, it works.
Well, let's hit on that a little bit. What helps bring balance back to a conversation, right? So if we're looking at a me monster and we're saying it is the look at me, or the woe is me, is the opposite of look at me, don't look at me?
Go on.
Is the opposite of the me monster the not me monster?
The you monster?
I don't know if it's a monster. Maybe the opposite of the me monster is just you being you and me being me. What are behaviors of the anti-me monster? We're going to start the anti-me monster movement. #antimemonster.com.
/www. The anti-me monster perhaps starts the conversation with a question about the other person.
Do you ever start a conversation with saying, hey, you'll never guess what I just did?
No. Yes, I'm lying. I probably have. Of course I have. We all have.
Sure.
What's your natural and most comfortable way to start a conversation? Is it to jump right in and tell the person what you just did or what you just accomplished or what's going on in your life? That makes me want to throw up right now. I don't like doing that. It gives me an anxious feeling of just talking about myself in a conversation. I want to start it by asking people or be asked. So now, again, then I'll probably turn into a me monster and try to take the conversation over later. So that's my bad, everyone in the world that I've ever talked to. But I think the anti-me #anti-me monster /www.com is the person that starts with a question about you and opens up that door for you, saying, I care about this. I want to hear what you have to say.
So if this were a volley or an exchange in volleyball or tennis or ping pong, I would need to toss you the ball first.
Yep.
Before we can start playing.
Yep.
So asking a question. I think we all, when I'm intentional, I want to start a conversation with asking a question. How are you? What have you been up to? What's going on? I'm reaching out and asking that question to make that connection.
Yep.
I think I've learned this just in my life that I can tend to be very quiet in a conversation, which all of a sudden turns it to being very one-sided because the other person ends up having to do all the talking. That the question piece doesn't just work at the beginning. It works throughout the conversation to keep the conversation going, to be able to ask questions and have follow-up questions to show interest in whatever that exchange is and whatever's going on.
The self-awareness piece that you talked about earlier, I think plays into this as well. So it's not only just starting the conversation or continuing the conversation with questions about that subject, but it's also that awareness of, if you start going down the road of, oh yeah, well, I've also climbed a mountain.
Yeah.
Being aware of that and those social cues and that social understanding of, oh shit, okay, what am I doing it? Or, okay, and if I feel like I am, how do I climbed a mountain once. Did you experience this thing that I experienced?
Yeah.
Or what kind of jacket did you wear, or something like that, where you're creating this relatability, but then you turn it back into a question so you don't become, oh yeah, well, I've climbed a bigger, tougher, harder, snowier mountain than you did.
Yeah.
And then now all of a sudden you're taking over the conversation and you're creating that imbalance.
Creating the imbalance or shutting it down, right?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of saying, oh, you were at a funeral? You'll never believe the funeral I was at.
Yeah.
We don't do that, right?
That ain't nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah.
We say, really sorry to hear that.
Right.
So we mentioned being intentional about asking the question, self-awareness. And then in that, you were just talking about social cues as well. And I think that's the other part of this is being aware of what's going on around you. I think we've all been in conversations like this before where the other person that we're talking to isn't getting the hint that we are trying to leave. And they keep going and you're trying to back out the door.
You're talking about me. I've done that before. That's me.
I've done that before too.
And it's like, it's time to go, Drew. And it's like, oh, no, one more thing. I want to tell you one more thing.
Sorry, sometimes you just need to tell me like, hey, I got to go.
Yep. But what's that, dear? What's that? I'll be right there.
I'm getting a call. I got to take this. Yeah.
That's funny. I don't see your phone lighting up. How's that work?
Oh, it is. It's on silent mode.
Social cues. For sure.
Social cues. Yeah.
For sure. And I have had some conversations with people that they were just dying to get out of it. Mm-hmm. And you just, it's that grand old Midwestern, oh, this conversation's over. I'm going to go over here now. Okay, I'll see you later then. Yep, got to go. Social cues, asking questions, being aware, self-awareness. Mm-hmm. Yeah, all right.
Okay, so that's what I do for myself. If I'm experiencing me monster-like tendencies, here's some of the things I can do. I think the other question then is what do we do when we are face to face with a me monster? How do we
kick him in the shins? Kick them in the shin.
Okay.
Any other
writing
questions?
that down. Shins.
Yep. Shins.
Okay. Shins.
Stomp on their big toe.
Stomp on their big. What? It's always hard. Like, I don't know. One, there's empathy there. Like, I feel for someone when they're in that situation. What do we do? Can we do anything as the on the receiving end of the me monster?
When I'm not being a me monster, mm-hmm. and I find myself in a situation where somebody is, that ain't nothing-ing me, and I'm involved with a me monster, mm-hmm. I give it about one attempt, maybe two, to create balance.
Okay.
I'll ask the question. I'll do a thing. But you can find out pretty quickly that you're in it. You just pull the ejection handle. You just got to get out, right? You just get out? Do you just walk? Do you just turn around and walk away because it doesn't matter? They don't care about you.
I think that's one option is getting out. I don't know. There's some situations though where you can't get out, right? It is
I know.
A colleague that you work with, someone that sits next to you or is on the same Zoom call with you every week.
Yeah.
And you can't get out.
You're at the social setting and you're just there.
You're there.
You're physically in a corner of a space and yeah, man. You just got to go.
You go, or if you can't go, it's continuing to not take it personally.
Yeah.
It's demonstrating how to act or behave, right? We want to continue listening, empathizing, and maybe celebrating others' victories, right? We're going to keep going on doing what we're doing.
Maybe you just keep going. If you could summarize this, Brent, because we love doing this at the end of our podcasts, mm-hmm. What are your takeaways with this one? What are you thinking about?
Yeah, to be selfish about this too, studying this, researching this, and then having this conversation, it's a chance for me to learn more about these concepts and the different tools and techniques that I could use. What I'm going to try and take away from this is to recognize for myself when I might be exhibiting signs of being a me monster, and just recognizing that for myself and kind of figuring out that balance. Making sure that I'm asking questions, making sure that I'm looking to see if the exchange in the conversation is working the way it needs to be working for me and the other person. How about you? What are you going to take away from this, Drew?
I think I'm going to go on your coattails there on that last thing that you just said. To me, in talking about this and having this conversation, what stands out to me is this imbalance of exchange. That's really what it comes down to. If it's well balanced and it can continue on, it creates a good to great conversation. If there's an imbalance and the exchange is not occurring, there's now you don't think there's relatability, and all these things start creeping in, and you just don't like it. It isn't fun. It's a bad conversation. That awareness of that exchange, and what can I do to do my part in creating better conversations in the world? If I'm becoming a me monster, am I aware of it? Mm-hmm. But as I enter into these conversations with other folks, am I doing my part to create balance, to create the exchange of information? Or am I taking it over, interrupting, et cetera, et cetera?
Accountability. I like it.
What did you just say? Accountability?
Accountability. Taking ownership for yourself and your actions.
I don't get it. What do you mean?
Don't worry about it.
All right. Maybe that's... I don't understand. Anyway, we'll talk about that maybe next time.
We'll do that another time.
Can we talk about this, Brant? We need to talk about this. Great idea.
We take ownership for our own actions.
Nope. Still don't understand.
No.
So anyway, fantastic topic. To those that introduced this to me not too long ago, thank you. To the comedian noted in the notes today, thank you for thinking about this several years ago and bringing it to our attention and making it, like most things in life, making a very sensitive and awkward occasion funny, so that we can laugh about it and then we can talk about it and we can get serious. And to those out there that want to be better listeners and to create better conversation, thank you. Thank you for doing what you're doing, because Brant and I feel that that's really, really, really important.
What's coming up next?
Brant, we are going to enter the world of the service industry. We are going into restaurants.
Excellent.
That waitress, waiter, server, bartender, restaurant owner, hostess, host, etc. They got to do a lot of listening.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about what it's like to be listening in a restaurant and why it's important. In the description of this podcast, you find more info about this topic and to see a list of sources used.
This podcast is created and produced by Drew Richmond and Brant Christofferson. Editing by me and theme music by Drew.
That's me.
Thanks, Drew. This has been fun.
Thanks, Brant. Till next time.
Me. It's all about me.